everyone. Welcome or welcome back to another episode of The Crossroads. I am your host, Rashida Green, and this is the show for and about environmental justice and those who fight the fight with skin as melanated as the days are long. Knowledge is power, and we are breaking down stereotypes one episode at a time. However, today we are going to take it easy. So I've decided that while I am going to double book myself, as it were, and I had an episode out last Saturday, which I think was good, but obviously was not on time, not on my normal day. I've really gotten into the habit of getting on the show and getting it out, or rather, I have gotten into the habit of getting the show out by Tuesday. And I did not make that happen. And of course, I was doing really well the last couple of months, really being committed to being on time and getting episodes out every week. But, sometimes I forget that, first of all, I work a full-time job. And then on top of all of that, girl, I'm still in school. Like, I really need to probably give myself just a hair more grace. But I was so excited to make sure that I could get episodes out. I was just like, yeah. And then the personal stuff said, hey, but we've come to the party too. So yeah. So this has definitely been a challenging last couple of weeks, everybody. It's been challenging. Shout out to everybody who is trying to do any kind of racial equity work at your jobs. God bless you, okay? You're doing the Lord's work. You're doing what the ancestors fought and died for, girl. Fought and died for, so that you could fight Samantha about why the rest. I don't even need to go there. Or why it's a microaggression or ridiculous to say that the token black person in your office looks like the token black person on The Office. You know what I'm saying? All right. Yes, that happened. Okay, moving along. So I am going to give some flowers, but honestly speaking, the person I'm going to give flowers to is still going to be Beyonce, because I'm still processing Black is King, or Black is Sickening, as Kid Fury said on the read. And I'm still going to give her some flowers. I'm also going to give flowers again to Miss Angela Davis, because even though this is going to be a lighter episode, I did promise that I would recap my my experience at the Abolition 101 webinar put out by Life After Release. So I am going to do that too. But in general, I'm just going to keep it real cute and real light. And what brought this on actually is because, and shout out to the Yelling at a Cloud podcast. He goes by at Crazy Drunken Elf, which should have been my first clue, but he goes by Crazy Drunken Elf on Twitter, yeah? And he just asked people like, hey, yo, shout out your show, like send me your show and I'll review it. What I failed to see was that this was about funny shows. This was not about like hard-hitting, here are some really complicated chemical terms, here's some government agencies, y'all better take this knowledge. That's not what he called for. That's not what he asked for. But he was still gracious enough to review my show, even though I didn't do what I was asked. And also, while I know very confidently that I'm a pretty clever gal, I realize that this show is not full of my antics. It's got bits, like I give you bits of antics, but that's mostly like at first and then at the end. Because in the middle, it's like the information is coming and flowing and it's like, yeah. And I'm really excited because all the points that are being hit on, I'm like, yeah, girl, yes, alignment, yes. And then I'm like, oh, at the end, like, oh, let me tell some jokes because we're coming to the close, which is just because like I've been keeping it together for 45 minutes and now I would like to cut up just a hair. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to him. And this is actually what gave me the idea to record today, and then really just to keep it very, very lighthearted. to accommodate for the fact that, you know, I know my show isn't like the funny, and he was not rude. I'm not saying this because he was like, your show is shit, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway. No, he was very, very nice and funny. It was really more of like, I realized that this show is serious, and that was the point. That was my entire intention. And of course, I want to bring my full self to it. So I try to be funny. I try to have a good time as much as I possibly can, but it's more about relaying the information for me, as being a priority. But I still think that there's always a good reason to incorporate fun. And if you've heard me on the Confessions from a Red Couch with Janae, you know I like to get foolish. So it's probably pretty surprising, I guess, when you hear me on other things and you're like, wow, girl, because it's like night and day. But I try to bring my full self into the podcast, into the show. So there is going to be some humor, but of course the information that I'm sharing it's serious. So, but I wanted to give Crazy Drunken Elf a shout out. He has a very odd Southern accent that I can't quite place, but it's funny to me. So that's that. And so I gave my flowers to Beyonce, duh, no surprises, Angela Davis, and of course a quick shout out. And so now let's transition into what I learned from Abolition 101. So as many of you may know, if you've been listening to this show, if you've gone back and listened to a few episodes, or you've just been listening to me in general, you know that I'm pretty passionate about incarceration, and really at first it was more so criminal justice reform and really wanting to do that work and be committed to it, which I still am. And that's actually, I think I mentioned that's what brought me to my grad program, whole 9 yards, right? So while I was in grad school, I was introduced to the concept of prison abolition. And if you happen to go back and listen to the Barriers episode with Ken Thompson, you'll hear that I asked him what his opinion was about abolishing prisons. And of course, you know, he said what a lot of people say, you know, that what are we going to do about the murderers and the rapists, and, you know, people have to have a place, or it's always the conversation usually is surrounding, well, where are we going to put these crazy motherfuckers? Like, that's usually what it boils down to. Where are we putting these crazy people? Because they can't stay with us, you know? And, you know, in some ways, I understand, you know, I had the misfortune of watching, all them prison lockup raw shows or people was tattooing their eyeballs. And I understand that might be a little jarring to look at while you're eating your salad and breadsticks at Olive Garden. I get it. Okay. Even in the dim light, I'm sure that just makes it look even scarier. Somebody with tattooed eyeballs. So I understand. So that came up, of course, and that was addressed. And so overall, before I get into the details of what I really enjoyed, I have to say that Kiana Johnson, who's the creator, the everything, the executive director of Life After Release. I don't know if that's what it's called, if she calls herself an executive director, but she should. She probably does. She probably does. Shout out to her. I'm sure that's what she calls herself. But she's the queen bee over at Life After Release. And she and her moderator were excellent. It was an excellent presentation. They are supposed to be having, this is a series, so they're supposed to be having other sessions, webinars. I haven't seen anything quite yet, but I will be on the lookout. And when I know about it, I will definitely obviously participate and then let you guys know too. So getting into the first thing that came up off top, right? The murderers, the rapists. What are we going to do with them? And one thing that came out was that, you know, this idea that the people who are in jail right now are all the murderers and rapists isn't true. So a lot of folks who are in jail are in there for what are classified as petty crimes. So like fighting, stealing, things of that nature. It's mostly non-violent offenses. And there's a very small percentage of the folks who are committing violent crimes who are actually found and are in jail. So that's the piece that should keep you up. Yeah. Okay. And something that I was not aware of was that prisons are in a breeding ground for sexual violence. Prisons make these activities, these sexually violent activities, easier to do. And the prison industrial system ultimately serves to control people who are considered to be undesirable, socially undesirable, and removes them from society. And when we talk about what's considered to be undesirable or socially undesirable, it's people who are not wealthy, laborers. And the idea or the concept is really for people to protect their land and property. And that's really, yes, when we think about a lot of us, and when I say us, I'm talking about just the average person. You just bought something from the Gap at some point in your life, okay? I'm talking about y'all, us, me. I've done it. It's me too. When we talk about us, yes, when we think about vandalism of a store or vandalism of our car, vandalism of our house, yes, those are the kinds of people that in that moment, we do want something to happen to them. I've had my car broken into, and it felt very violating. So I completely understand that. And I also have to think about, because I got my car broken into pretty recently. And it was really stupid. I left my door unlocked, and thank God they didn't break anything. And I didn't fucking notice until I got in the car, and then I look in the back seat and my clarinet is open, and I was like, what the hell is this? And that's how I realized that someone had been in my car, because my clarinet from high school was open. Don't ask me about what I do in my personal life. That's none of your concern. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that, yes, when we talk about individual loss of property or theft, it is annoying, and we do want people to quote unquote pay for that or pay back or whatever. And I think there's other ways that can be done. But if we're talking about the seriously violent crimes, that's a very small percentage of what the prison population looks like. And abolition aims to create a world where people don't have to resort to violence to meet their needs. And that really took the cake for me. I thought that was just such an amazing statement and such a great sentiment, that here is something that, if it were implemented, would completely take away the need for people to steal. Because why do people steal? Because they don't have what they need to clothe themselves, feed themselves. And yes, some people just steal so they can look good first time in drags at the ball. Yes. But some people actually steal too because they need it. And if you have the money, you don't need to steal. Or at least that's the idea. Some people do like to steal. I remember I was in college and this guy told me that once. I don't know what it is. For some reason, people say that I look like someone who they can tell stuff to. Apparently it runs in my family. My family has this very interesting Forrest Gump quality of sitting down somewhere and on a bench and having strangers come and sit and talk to them. It's happened to me. I know my mother has said it, my grandmother too. So it's just a weird thing. So people like to tell me stuff, was the point of all that. And this guy told me straight up once, he was like, yeah, sometimes I just like to steal. I was like, oh, word? Yeah. And I never talked to him again. No surprises. This was college. So it wasn't about me being elitist. I was young and I was like, why is this boy telling me this? Why are you telling me this? It was too much too soon. So no young love there. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you have the money, you don't steal. And the idea of abolition is that it would remove criminalized behavior. And, something else that came out that was important to me too, to bring into this conversation, was just that, the trans and non-binary folks in our community are also victims of state and community violence. And the police are a violent force in the queer community. And we already know that there are people at that intersection of being Black and also being members of the LGBTQ plus community. So we know that that's entirely possible, to be doubly accosted and doubly at harm with the police, who generally are in low income Black and brown communities. So I thought it was just really, 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 really excellent. And then we took the conversation a step further and started to talk about what we wanted in our abolitionist world. Now that we've gotten this overview of why it works or why it should work, the folks who've been at the front of the movement, and just so people know, I mean, pretty much since we've been putting people in jails, when America was first begun, quote unquote, when the whites came, basically is what I'm trying to say, when the whites came, since we've been locking people, or they've been locking people up all this time, right? And for as long as they've been doing it, there have been people who are pushing back against it. And so it's not just, abolition wasn't just solely for slavery, it is, and many, like Angela Davis, consider the prison system to be modern day slavery. So just bringing all that into the conversation. So we talked about what the world would look like that we wanted to build. So some of the things that came up were dignified housing. And we have talked about housing on this here program. So what I like about it is that the term dignified, because the term that we often hear is affordable, right? And as I discussed with Leslie on the benefit versus burden episode, there's a difference between and people's perception of what is considered to be affordable. Some people might think $1,000 is affordable. Some people might think that's too damn high. Other people might think $2,000 is just fine for a rent. Oh, girl. Ooh, Lord, the tingles in my spine. But some people think that's okay and are fine with it. And other people would be like, I thank you for your time, and walk out, right? So, and who determines that? And the point I'm trying to make is, I like the term dignified housing because it reminds us that there is a difference between what people's perception of affordability is, and that what at all times affordable housing should be is dignified. Next, violence interrupters. So having real relationships with our neighbors, because as we know, we most of the time when we disagree or we argue, it is with people in our community. And if we have good, wholesome relationships with our community, with our neighbors, it can decrease, hopefully, the need to call any form of law enforcement or any kind. Even if we're in an abolitionist world, it wouldn't be law enforcement. It would probably be some level of community mediation. And instead of it having to get to that level, if neighbors are amenable to each other, they can talk and work it out, hoping and supposing the best for everybody, right? Health services for sex workers. Now, I know I do not talk about sex on this program, but I am very sex positive, and I definitely believe that sex work should be legalized and legitimized. There is no getting around it. It's the oldest business, and it ain't going nowhere. So we need to have things in place to protect the folks, the people, not just women, not just men, the people who want to be in the sex industry, but also want to be safe. Universal basic income, dependable and safe childcare, self-awareness, and emotional intelligence. Now, if you go back and listen to, the Seeing Stars episode, go back and listen to that episode, and you'll see that we talk about emotional intelligence, and that's important to have, and that's something that people would want to see. But emotional intelligence is like, I think it's learned. It's not just, something you got to teach that. I think, and also for saying self-awareness, I think that's something that people need to be taught. I think it's natural. Like, I find myself to be a pretty self-aware person, but I realize that sometimes you don't realize, everybody makes mistakes and they don't realize that they've hurt or offended someone, and you got to make amends for it, blase, blase. And sometimes you can be aware that of your words or how they are coming across to people, but sometimes you need help to realize that that might be a problem of yours. So I like that. And global impact, anti-ableism, yes. And last but not least, free quality education to include music and art. So these are some of the things that we talked about in our abolitionist world, a world where, we don't have to worry about criminalizing or criminalized behavior, where people don't have to steal to get the things that they need. And in my vision, just to add on to this, because I'm certain there are people who are like, well, what about, and here's what I will say also. In my world that I'm slowly building, I would also say that there should be a social services dispatch where if someone is having any kind of medical emergency, if, for example, if a sex worker is harmed in some way by someone, or thinks that maybe things happened during that something may have happened and they need to get an exam, that there are services at the ready to help people out. If someone is in need of counseling because they had a very difficult childhood or a very difficult anything, that they have resources available so they don't have to go kick cans or burn a car, these types of things. You know what I'm talking about? So these are the things that I envision in my world. And that's all I'm gonna say about that for right now. I really enjoyed, again, I really thought it was an excellent program. And I think that I'm looking forward to the next one. Moving on. And now I'm just gonna talk, I guess. So, random thing that I'm just gonna say. Terry Crews, I really would like for you to either get on Talkspace, or maybe you'll have I don't know if any of you guys have seen the Sankofa movie. I feel like he needs to have the Sankofa experience where he's that girl who's on the beach with a blonde wig on and blue contacts, and then all of a sudden the ancestors show up and say, hey, go back to the other side. You know what I'm talking about? And I feel like that's what he needs. I feel like he needs a Sankofa moment where he can just go relive Middle Passage and get his mind together. Because the fact that he says the things that he says lets me know that, he's got some sprockets loose. Yes, I want him to shut up forever. So, and I've been meaning to have a time to say that. I've been saying it to my friends, but now I wanted to come on my platform here and just, I just want to say it again. I just really wanted to make that very plain. That I really would like for him to go get somewhere and sit down. I think he needs a Sankofa moment. So I am going to keep this episode kind of brief this week, but I wanted to put the feelers out to see who was still interested in reading Harriet Washington's Medical Apartheid book. I know I'm asking a lot right now. I get it. I only have I have a couple of folks who are interested, but if you have maybe not listened to the show before, if you're new here, welcome, hello. Or if you are interested, I am very open. I have no format yet set up because I'm still trying to wade through this book, but if folks are interested, and we get a few more folks who want to read the book, I will set a date to record and talk about it, and we can, go from there. I think it's an important book, especially in this time with the coronavirus. So I definitely want to, and not just for the coronavirus, but for our own knowledge. And I'm not going to lie to you. It is a hard read. I'm a good portion of the way through it, and it's hard. I have to take breaks and stop because it's a lot of information. So of course I'm taking notes, but also it's heavy. It's heavy shit. So I'm not going to force that on people. If that's not your bag, I understand. But if folks are interested, please hit me up. You can you can at me on Twitter. You can, or on Facebook, any of my social media, I will respond. Or you can email me, Rashida@allroadscross.com, and I'll respond to you because I'm trying to be cooler about that, because I'm kind of not really, I talk on social media and I comment on stuff, but I'm trying to interact and be cool. So I will make an effort to continue to be cool. I am going to give some shout outs. Once again, actually a couple shout outs. First of all, shout out to And She Creates, who is back. She was on a hiatus and now she's back. Shout out to her. And actually, special shout out to Purring Kitty Cat, because I did mention that I am sex positive and I want to put a podcast out there that is excellent, it's steamy, it's sultry, it's sexy. So, as you know, I unofficially appointed myself as the president of the Meow Hive, and I've been slacking on my duties. And I understand that, and I'm sorry. But what I will say is that, that all the content is amazing, and it's an auditory experience. It's well written, it's well put together, and exemplifies what I mean and about having fun and having sex to be an enjoyable experience for your own environment. And I also want to give shout out to Seema. It's her birthday today, August 4th. And so I think I showed her some love on social media, and I texted her as well. But if you are friends with her, please show her some love today as she's celebrating her birthday. She has the same birthday as Meghan Markle and Barack Obama. I was like, wow, girl. I mean, I have good people on my birthday too, but I was like, okay, that's royalty. All right. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Totally fine. That's all I'm going to give you guys. I will be back, hopefully, prayerfully, next week with fresh content. And I hope this episode was bearable. I know it's definitely different than what I normally give, but I hope that this was a little bit lighter and just an example of, needing to take the time that you need to take care of yourself. So, okay, everyone. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Crossroads. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter at CrossroadsPodC1. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Crossroads Podcast. And all episodes of the Crossroads Podcast are available on all the platforms, including Pandora, and also Gaana, Gaana. Yup, I'm ringing off in India. Hello, everybody. And also still ringing off in Bangladesh. Shout out to Bangladesh. As a quick reminder, if you happen to miss my IG live with Seema, where we talked about Kamala Harris's environmental justice plan, it is available on Instagram. You can just check my IG stories and you can get just an overview, our perspective and our opinions on Kamala Harris's plan. Thank you all so much for joining me, and we'll see you at the Crossroads.